Your stomach drops, not metaphorically, actually drops. Blood rerouting, smooth muscle clenching, a wave of nausea rolling through you before your conscious mind has said a single word. You haven't even figured out what's wrong yet. You just know something is. You're standing in a parking lot. It's empty, it's fine, it's completely statistically fine, and your gut is screaming at you anyway. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. Oh, hey there. I'm dead, by the way. Have been for a while. Time gets fuzzy once you're on this side of things. No sunsets to count, no calendars, just an endless front row seat to watching humans wander around inside bodies they never bothered to read the manual for. And believe me, I get it. I didn't read mine either. That parking lot, that gut drop, I ignored it. Twice. The second time is sort of why I'm here, talking to you, instead of there complaining about my knees like a normal retiree. But that feeling, that specific, wordless stomach-first warning system, that's what we're doing today, because your gut isn't just where digestion happens, it's running its own nervous system, feeding information straight to your brain faster than your brain can consciously process it. And most people go their entire lives thinking trust your gut is a metaphor. It's not a metaphor. It's a memo. The second brain nobody tells you about, which brings us to something most people find genuinely disturbing the first time they hear it. You have more neurons in your gut than in your entire spinal cord, roughly 500 million of them, woven through the lining of your intestines in a mesh called the enteric nervous system. This is known, well-documented physiology, not a wellness blog exaggeration. Your gut can regulate digestion, contract muscles, and coordinate complex sequences almost entirely on its own. Even if you sliced the connection to your brain, it doesn't need permission. It's not a subsidiary. It's more like a second office that happens to share a building with your skull. And the wiring between these two offices is called the vagus nerve, a long, wandering highway, the name literally comes from the Latin for wandering, that runs from your brainstem down through your neck, chest, and into your abdomen. Here's the part that surprises almost everyone. About 80 to 90% of the fibers in the vagus nerve carry information upward from gut to brain, not the other way around. Your gut talks to your brain far more than your brain talks to your gut. You've spent your whole life assuming your brain is the CEO issuing orders downward. In reality, it's mostly sitting there reading incoming reports from the floor. Your pancreas deserves overtime pay. Your gut deserves a promotion. The feeling before the thought. Here's the part nobody tells you. That gut drop in the parking lot happened before you consciously registered danger. This is where things get genuinely strange. Your brain contains a region called the insular cortex, tucked deep in the folds of your brain, whose job is to monitor the internal state of your body, heart rate, gut tension, breathing, muscle tightness, and translate all of that raw biological noise into something you can actually feel. This process is called interoception, and it's the reason gut feeling isn't just a poetic phrase. Your insula is quite literally reading your gut and reporting back. The order of operations, as best researchers can currently tell, looks something like this. 1. Your enteric nervous system and autonomic system detect something, a subtle shift in the environment, a threat cue too small for conscious attention. 2. Signals fire up the vagus nerve towards the brainstem. 3. The brainstem forwards it to the insula. 4. The insula translates raw biological data into an emotional flavor, dread, unease, excitement. 5. Then your conscious mind catches up and tries to explain why you feel that way. Notice what's missing from that list until step 5. Conscious reasoning. Your body built the emotional verdict before your thinking brain was even in the room. This sequencing is known from neuroscience research on interoception and decision-making, most famously formalized by neuroscientist Antonio Damasio as the somatic marker hypothesis, the idea that bodily signals guide decisions before and sometimes instead of explicit logical reasoning, which raises an uncomfortable question. How much of what you call thinking is actually just narrating a decision your gut already made? Fast fact, a racehorse can process visual threat information and initiate a flight response in a fraction of a second, long before the image has even fully registered in the parts of its brain responsible for conscious recognition. Humans run on a strikingly similar shortcut. Your amygdala, the brain's early warning threat detector, can trigger a bodily stress response from a blurry, half-processed visual cue alone, sometimes before the visual cortex has even finished building a clear picture of what you're looking at. You feel the alarm before you know what you're afraid of. Evolution decided that being fast and occasionally wrong beats being accurate and occasionally dead. The lie your brain told you about speed. Which brings us to something stranger. You'd assume the smart way to make decisions is slowly, with full information, weighing every option like a judge. Turns out your brain frequently disagrees. There's a well-known category of decision-making research showing that in situations with too many variables, social dynamics, danger assessment, complex risk, deliberate step-by-step conscious reasoning can actually perform worse than fast, gut-level pattern matching. This is sometimes described in psychology as affect heuristics, quick emotional shortcuts your brain uses to skip laborious calculation. Why would evolution build something that skips careful analysis? Because careful analysis is expensive, it's slow, it burns glucose, and in the ancestral environment, the tiger did not wait for you to finish a cost-benefit spreadsheet. Your gut feeling is essentially a compression algorithm, decades of pattern recognition distilled into a single physical sensation, delivered in under a second. It's not magic, it's not psychic, it's your brain quietly cross-referencing an enormous, mostly unconscious database of past experience and firing off a verdict before your conscious mind has even opened its mouth. Evolution breakdown. Here's where biology cheats. Evolution never optimized you for accuracy. It optimized you for survival long enough to reproduce, which is a very different goal and one that tolerates the shocking amount of error. Consider the actual trade-off being made every time your gut sounds an alarm. A false alarm, feeling dread in an empty parking lot that turns out to be completely safe, costs you a few uncomfortable seconds and maybe a mildly embarrassing sprint to your car. A missed alarm, ignoring the real threat because your gut stayed quiet, could cost you your life. Given that asymmetry, natural selection built a system that is deliberately, intentionally trigger-happy. It would rather you feel unnecessary dread 1,000 times than miss the one real threat buried in there. This is sometimes called the smoke detector principle in evolutionary medicine. A smoke detector that goes off constantly for burnt toast is annoying, but a smoke detector calibrated to never falsely alarm would also fail to catch actual fires in time. Your gut isn't broken when it panics over nothing. It's doing exactly the job it was built for, erring on the side of paranoid. What your brain thinks is happening. Here's the part that gets genuinely wild. Your gut doesn't just react to danger, it helps generate your mood, largely without your permission. Roughly 90 to 95% of your body's serotonin, yes, the neurotransmitter everyone associates with mood and antidepressants, is produced in your gut, not your brain. This is known. What's still an active area of research and should be labeled as likely not settled is exactly how much of that gut-produced serotonin influences your emotional state. Since most of it doesn't cross directly into the brain, it largely works locally, regulating gut motility, and communicates upward indirectly through vagal signaling and other pathways. Then there's your microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your intestines. There's a growing, genuinely fascinating body of research suggesting gut bacteria can influence anxiety-like behavior, stress hormone regulation, and even social behavior, largely demonstrated through animal studies where scientists transplant gut bacteria from anxious mice into calm mice and watch the calm mice become measurably more anxious. Human research in this area is still emerging, and the strength and mechanism of the connection remains an active hypothesized area of study rather than a fully settled one. But the early signal is strong enough that neuroscientists now casually refer to the gut-brain microbiome relationship as an axis, as if your intestines were quietly running for a seat on your emotional board of directors. Evolution looked at mood regulation and decided the best contractor for the job was a swarm of bacteria living in your intestines. Somehow, that got approved. The anatomy of a gut feeling second by second. Let's slow this down because the actual timeline is faster than most people would guess. 0.0 seconds. A sensory cue enters your environment. A shift in someone's tone, a shadow, an unexplained silence. 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. Your amygdala, running its rapid threat assessment shortcut, flags the cue as potentially significant, often before your visual or auditory cortex has finished building a fully detailed conscious picture of what's actually there. 0.2 to 0.5 seconds. Signals cascade through your autonomic nervous system. Your adrenal glands begin releasing adrenaline. Blood flow redirects away from digestion, which is why your stomach can feel like it's dropping, toward your major muscle groups. 0.5 to 1 second. Your gut's enteric nervous system responds to the shift in blood flow and neural signaling with altered motility, the sensation you experience as tightness, nausea, or a literal falling feeling. 1 to 2 seconds. Vagal afferents carry this bodily state upward to your insula. 2 to 3 seconds. Your insula and prefrontal cortex integrate the physical sensation with context, producing a conscious feeling, dread, unease, alertness. 3+ seconds. You finally get to weigh in. You look around, you start narrating. Something feels off. Congratulations, your conscious mind has arrived to the meeting roughly 3 seconds after the decision was already made. 3 seconds might sound trivial. In a genuine emergency, 3 seconds is the difference between reacting and reacting too late. None of this is speculation dressed up as fact. There's real clinical and experimental grounding here. Iowa Gambling Task Research, one of the most cited studies in decision-making neuroscience, found that participants developed measurable anticipatory skin conductance responses, physiological stress signals, to risky choices before they could consciously articulate which choices were risky. Their bodies figured out the pattern before their conscious reasoning did. Separately, studies on patients with damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, a region responsible for integrating those bodily gut signals into decision-making, found something striking. These patients often retained completely normal intelligence and could describe risk logically, in words, with total clarity. But in practice, in real decisions with real stakes, they made dramatically worse choices again and again. Understanding a decision intellectually turned out to be nowhere near enough. Without the gut-level emotional signal feeding in, the decision-making system was left running on half its instruments. Think of it like a jumbo jet with a fully functional instruction manual but a disconnected instrument panel. The pilot can recite the correct procedure from memory, they just can't feel whether the plane is actually descending. Myth 1. Myth: a gut feeling is just superstition, an unreliable hunch with no real biological basis. Reality: a gut feeling is a genuine physiological signal generated by measurable neural and hormonal activity, often reflecting real pattern recognition drawn from prior experience. Why it's false? People conflate not consciously explainable with not real, but plenty of extremely real biological processes, hunger, thirst, pain, also arrive without a footnoted explanation. Unconscious does not mean fake. It means the calculation happens somewhere you don't have direct access to. Myth 2. You should always trust your gut over your rational analysis. Reality: gut feelings are pattern matching against past experience, which means they're only as reliable as the experience they're drawn from. Why it's false? A gut feeling built from genuine expertise, a firefighter sensing a structure is about to collapse, a nurse sensing a patient is deteriorating before vital signs change, is drawing on thousands of real prior data points. A gut feeling built from anxiety, trauma, or bias, like assuming every stranger of a certain description is dangerous, is drawing on distorted or incomplete data. The mechanism is identical in both cases, only the training data differs. Your gut is a prediction engine, and prediction engines are only as good as what they were trained on. Myth 3. Anxiety and intuition feel completely different, so you can easily tell them apart. Reality: at the level of raw physiology, anxiety and intuitive alarm can produce nearly identical bodily signatures: elevated heart rate, gut tightening, shallow breathing. The false is that the insula doesn't attach a helpful little label reading, "This one's real danger," versus "This one's just your unresolved anxiety about Tuesday's meeting." Both register as the same category of internal alarm. Distinguishing them often requires conscious, deliberate context checking, which is precisely the slow reasoning your gut is trying to bypass in the first place. This is a genuinely known source of confusion in clinical psychology, particularly in anxiety disorders, where the alarm system fires constantly regardless of actual external threat. Myth 4. People with strong intuition have some kind of special psychic sensitivity. Reality: what looks like uncanny intuition is almost always accelerated unconscious expertise, pattern recognition built from repetition. Research on expert decision-making, notably work on firefighters and chess masters, consistently shows that what feels like a mysterious hunch is actually rapid, below-conscious retrieval of thousands of previously encountered patterns. A chess grandmaster doesn't calculate every possible move faster than a beginner. They instantly recognize the shape of the position from experience. Expertise doesn't feel like calculation. It feels like knowing. That's not mysticism. That's just what a well-trained brain feels like from the inside. Survival trade-off. Here's a trade-off your body makes constantly and almost nobody notices. When your gut sounds a genuine alarm, digestion gets deprioritized. Blood flow redirects towards muscles that might need to run or fight and away from the intestines that were, moments ago, patiently breaking down your lunch. This is why intense stress can produce nausea, cramping, or the sudden, undeniable urge to use the bathroom at the worst possible moment. Your body is making a very old, very blunt calculation. Digesting a sandwich is not a priority if you might be about to die. Better to interrupt lunch than to interrupt survival. Your body is not interested in your dignity. It is interested in your continued existence. Those are not always compatible goals, and your gut will pick existence every single time, often loudly and often at a party. Unexpected exception.
Here's when the rule breaks. Sometimes the gut alarm fires and there genuinely is no threat at all. Not because the system malfunctioned, but because it's pattern matching against something irrelevant to the present moment. Trauma survivors frequently describe intense gut-level alarm triggered by cues that have no rational connection to present danger. A smell, a tone of voice, a particular kind of silence. This is known clinically and is central to how post-traumatic stress is understood. The amygdala and associated threat circuitry can become sensitized, firing gut-level alarms based on surface-level similarity to a past traumatic pattern, rather than an accurate read of current risk. The system isn't lying. It's applying an old pattern to a new context where it doesn't belong, like a smoke detector that got installed too close to the toaster and now panics every time someone makes breakfast. This is also, incidentally, why just trust your gut is not universally sound advice. Sometimes your gut is running on outdated data and needs an update, not blind obedience. And that's only half the story, because sometimes the gut alarm is precisely right, and ignoring it is the last mistake you make. Scenario drop. You're driving home. Nothing is visibly wrong. The road looks normal. But something, you couldn't say what, makes you ease off the gas half a second before the car ahead of you slams its brakes. You didn't consciously see brake lights yet. Your peripheral visual system and pattern recognition circuits picked up on a subtle change in the car's motion, distance, or flow of traffic around it, and your body responded before your conscious attention caught up. This is a documented phenomenon in perception research. Peripheral and subconscious visual processing can detect motion changes and initiate protective reflexes faster than the deliberate, focused attention that produces a clear, "I see brake lights" moment. Some of the fastest reactions you'll ever have in your life will happen entirely before you're aware you're reacting. I wish I'd understood that better personally. There's a version of me, a much more alive version, who felt a very specific, very persistent unease about a chest pain that was probably nothing. It described itself in my head as probably indigestion. It was not, in fact, indigestion. My gut had already filed the correct report. My conscious mind overruled it with a more convenient story. That is roughly how I ended up on this side of the conversation, delivering YouTube scripts to the living with the smug clarity of hindsight and zero ability to act on it myself. Things I wish I'd understood before my body had enough chances. So here's what eternity and an unfortunate amount of first-hand research have taught me. Your gut feeling is not mysticism, and it's not nonsense. It's a genuine, fast, physiologically real signal, built from the enteric nervous system, the vagus nerve, the insula, and years of pattern recognition you were never consciously taught. It's not always right. It's not always wrong. It is, however, always trying, desperately, urgently, sometimes clumsily, to keep you alive one more day, using whichever half-completed dataset it currently has on file. The lesson isn't always obey your gut blindly. The lesson is always take the report seriously enough to actually investigate it. A smoke detector going off doesn't mean the house is definitely burning down. It also doesn't mean you should remove the batteries because it's occasionally annoying. You check, you look around, you give it 3 more seconds of conscious attention before deciding it's wrong. I didn't do that. I overruled a genuinely accurate internal memo with a more convenient story. Turns out that's a one-time discount, and the fine print is brutal. You, on the other hand, still have a body that hasn't run out of chances yet. Use it. Argue with it if you want. It can take the criticism. It's been getting criticized by ungrateful humans since the dawn of the species, but don't dismiss it outright. Your pancreas is still working overtime. Your liver is still patiently absorbing your questionable decisions like a kindergarten teacher who's seen worse. And somewhere in your intestines, 500 million neurons are quietly, constantly filing reports up a wandering nerve to a brain that frankly could stand to read its mail a little faster. It's a strange, improbable, occasionally ridiculous system. It has been keeping ordinary people alive, unnoticed for their entire lives, including yours right now, while you sit here listening to a dead guy explain your own stomach to you. That's not a small thing. That's the whole show.